Hello! October 2024 wrap up. I literally do not know how it's already November. It's not even the 1st anymore. It's the 2nd, November 2nd. Somehow it's November 2nd and Christmas music is playing in every store that I go into, which is not great, but here we are. I'm just gonna blast through this because I'm in a time crunch. There are a couple of things that I'm really excited to talk about, a couple of things that are kind of okay. For the most part, it wasn't the best reading month, but I had some incredibly high highs that I'm very excited to talk to you about. So let's get started with our stats. All right, so for the month of October, I read a total of 12 books, 12 things. 6 of them were ebooks, 2 were physical books. 1 was a graphic novel that was physical, 1 was a manga ebook, and 2 were physical manga volumes. I did also DNF 1 book, which I'll talk about. Genres. I read 1 dystopian, 5 fantasy, 1 general lit, 1 historical, 2 romance, who am I? 1 suspense, and 1 thriller. Average ratings was a 3.6. I was surprised it was that high, but then when I was looking through everything, I have quite a lot of 5 stars compared to what I thought I did, so not surprising, but also surprising. So I had 1 2-star book, 2 2.5 stars, 4 3-star books, 1 4.5-star books, and 4 5-star books, one of which is a favorite of the year, top 10 at minimum favorite of the year, maybe top 5 depending on how I work out my top of the year list. So very excited to talk about that. Country of origin for the author, 6 from the United States, 3 from Japan, 1 from England, and 2 from South Korea. So 2 books in translation this month. Diversity. Diversity sucked this month. Only 33% of my books were diverse in some way, in some fashion. And a caveat, as always, I do not count manga as diverse in terms of being an Asian author because it is Japanese authors writing for a Japanese audience and writing Japanese characters, which is not diverse in that frame. So I only count diversity in manga if it is truly diverse, you know, like LGBTQ, stuff like that. So 4 of the books I read were BIPOC in some way, Black, Indigenous, Person of Color authors. 4 featured LGBTQIA plus characters, and 2 were own voices in some fashion, and obviously own voices in some fashion. Age of the books I read, the oldest is from 2001 and the youngest are 2024 new releases. Author familiarity. So this is how I knew the authors before. 1 book was a debut for the year. 7 were new to me, so that is exciting. 2 I've read before, and 2 authors were actual, I've considered them favorite authors. And how I got my books. So 1 was an ARC, which is so lovely. Again, thank you, Tor, for sending me, not only approving me on NetGalley, but also sending me a finished copy of Blood of the Old Kings. 5 from the library, where their ebooks were physical. 4 of them were books I already owned, and 2 were from a subscription of some sort. So Amazon, now Kobo Plus. I don't have Amazon Limited, Kindle Limited anymore, so I have Kobo Plus. Viz or Shonen Jump, Marvel Unlimited, stuff like that. So subscriptions. That's all the stats. Let's get to what I've read. First. I'm so excited about this. So I'm going to mention it here so that you, if you want to, you can stick around to the end of the video, because I go from DNFs and lowest stars to 5 stars so I can end on a high. And my 5-star new favorite of the year is a book that I originally read through the library on ebook, and I loved it so much that I went and bought a paperback copy from the author. And it is actually a signed copy. And it literally just came in today. I've been kind of waiting today because I knew it was going to be delivered today. And I got the package covered up so you can't see anything. And I literally haven't, all I've done is just rip it open, you know, I haven't even seen inside. So let's unbox this purchase. My new favorite. Oh, it's wrapped, look at that. Oh, the cherry blossoms. Okay, that'll make sense later. Okay, I don't want to totally rip this. These stickers are so cute. Okay. This is... there's stuff in it. But first, this is Sistah Samurai by Tatiana Obi. I read this through the library. I had been interested in it because I think Patrick did a review of it either YouTube or Goodreads. I think Goodreads. I read his Goodreads review and he gave it glowing praise. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. My library had it on Hoopla and I loved it. So I immediately went and bought a copy from the author directly on her website. It is signed. It has stickers. Oh, okay. First, what am I doing here? Okay. I'm a mess. I wasn't ready for this. Okay, so to Chantal, thank you. Stay slaying, Tatiana Obi. Oh, I love it. Okay, and then this cover. Oh, yes, that is a black woman with an afro who is a samurai. All will be explained when I talk about it later, but yeah, I'm so excited. I forgot about this and that. Okay, I'm just gonna be gushing. I can talk about it later. Here, let's see, it comes with a link to the playlist for the book. Yes, so I'm gonna be listening to that soon. Oh, there's a card. Chantal, here's the front and the writing. Thank you so much for purchasing a signed copy of Sistah Samurai. I'm so honored that you would be willing to give space on your bookshelf to my flawed and badass characters. I truly appreciate you. Your support keeps me writing. Stay slaying. Sincerely, Tatiana Obi. Yes, this is going to be a very, very, very proud spot on my bookshelves. It's gonna be here until the end of the year because this is all my favorites of the year, but yeah, I just want to gush about it. And 2 stickers. Oh yay, I got my cherry blossoms. And 2 stickers of characters that show up in the book, so yay. I am so excited. Like, can you tell how much I love this book? Okay. We're gonna set this aside and I will talk about this at the very end of the video because we want to end on the highest positive highs, right? Stick around. Starting with DNFs, and I'm counting this one because I got a considerable way, I think about 32% in to the book, and this is Escape Velocity by Victor Manibo. This is, I have been super into very genre mystery, and by genre blending, like sci-fi mystery, fantasy mystery. So a favorite sci-fi mystery, the series by Malka Older, the Mossa and Pleiti series by Malka Older, very sci-fi Holmesian. They are mysteries, but they are sci-fi mysteries. This year, what did I read? Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Mystery, but it is fantasy mystery. And so I wanted to just keep digging into this subgenre that I'm really enjoying, and Escape Velocity seemed like one of them. It is more of a mystery thriller, I would say. So essentially it takes place in the future. There are these space stations orbiting Earth, and one of these is like the most highest of luxury space stations that people can go to. And the weekend that this is taking place during is a weekend for a school reunion for very rich kids whose parents sent them to the school. They're doing a school reunion. Lots of the characters are like big movers and shakers, very important people in whatever part of the world economics work they do. And they are coming to this because essentially there is a movement to colonize Mars, but somebody put together a sort of merit system. So you get points for you in to go towards going to Mars, and only people who apply and have a lot of points can go to Mars. So essentially it's sort of, it is weeding out people who cannot afford to do certain things. Like, you get 6 points just for being on a space station for a few days, which is why most of these people even go to this reunion. Now, there's a lot of other stuff going on, and because there's a lot of stuff going on, that was the main issue I had with this book, is that there's too much going on. So you have, the book opens with a character coming to in just a spacesuit outside the space station, and they're pretty much going to die. And then we flash back to like a few days before. We're meeting a bunch of characters as they arrive on the space station. We're getting to learn very bits of their backstory as they all appear. And So we have this gay couple who are really worried about, you know, the merit system because they're gay. They can't reproduce themselves, so they have that against them. There is a character who she showed up, and apparently when all these characters were in school, her twin brother was murdered. People think she did it, but her girlfriend that they found, her secret girlfriend went down for it, but people still think she had part to do with it. We follow two other friends who were part of her friend group. These boys, three boys, one of them was the gay, so much was going on. Essentially, three boys were her friend group, and they're all coming back together. On top of all of these storylines coming together and interweaving on the space station, we get some POVs from staff on the space station. I believe Victor Manibo is Filipino, which is why there's a big focus on how most of the staff is Filipino, and one of the main characters, he is also Filipino or part Filipino, so he wrestles with a lot of like feeling like he's never fit in on either side, either on, you know, the rich new money side or, you know, the Filipino side. And then we also get flashback chapters to when they were in school and this girl's twin brother is found murdered. It focuses on her and three guy friends, one of whom is pretty much in love with her. So there's a lot. And then I got to a chapter where one of the guy friends, he is in like some kind of financial domination relationship with some other guy, and it goes into that a lot. There's a whole like chapter of him doing that with the guy, and I was like, did not sign up for this. And then there's some like politicking and social engineering, and then something happens where like a debris field is coming at the space station, but they kind of avoid it. But there's kind of this feeling like maybe it wasn't as, you know, innocuous as the ship makes it seem. There was so much going on. It just wasn't a straightforward mystery, which is what I was expecting, or even a straightforward thriller. I think if it was a straightforward thriller, it would have shaved down quite a few of what was happening in the present timeline, maybe focused on the woman whose twin brother died because she's starting to find out more facts about what her friends did or lied to her about during that time. So like uncovering that, like that alone would have made a more streamlined story. But there's so much, and I understand that the author is trying to approach racism, social elitism, eat the rich, climate change, just all kinds of stuff the author is trying to tackle here. But it's so much, and it was just overwhelming, and my brain didn't know where to focus, and I disliked most of the characters, which is not a bad thing. Like I can read just unlikable characters, but I didn't like not liking them, if that makes sense. So all that to say, I DNF'd it because I didn't feel like it was going to be a high rating, and it was unfortunate because I really love this subgenre of like sci-fi mystery, you know? Yeah, that's it. Like I said, I'm going to speed through most of these. So the ones that I have already talked about, I'm going to link down below, and I pointed to those videos. So my 2-star read was Pole Position by Rebecca J. Caffery. I went on about this at length the last time I talked about it, so that is linked down below. My 2.5-star read is The Phantom Twin by Lisa Brown. Thankfully, I hadn't gone back to the library yet. This is a historical fiction graphic novel about two conjoined twins who are in a freak show circus, and they have a separation surgery, except one twin dies, but she's still there as like a phantom twin, and the other twin has to figure out how to live without her twin. It was fine. I linked down below. I talked about it a little bit longer in the past. The first 3-star that I finished this month was Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, linked down below. In short, This is so interesting, and I am very jealous of people who really, really, really love this world and this series and Brandon Sanderson's stories and writing, because they have so much to read and ingest. And I am jealous because I want that. I want to enjoy this as much as other people do, but it's just too long and there's just too much, and it is exhausting for me to read these books. Exhausting. So, link down below if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that. My next 3-star is Blood of the Old Kings by Kim Sung-il. This is translated from Korean. It is a fantasy, straightforward, pretty good fantasy novel. Yes, they're dragons. And yes, there's a dragon. Pretty prominent dragon in one of the 3 storylines. 3 characters, 3 storylines. Link down below. I talk about this at length, and for me, with how much fantasy I read, this didn't seem to quite do anything new, anything super new. There's one character whose storyline was very interesting. She focused on the magic, and the magic in this was really cool and interesting. But the other 2 characters just didn't do anything for me. So weighing it out, it came out to a 3. But I would highly suggest this for anybody who is new to fantasy and is looking for something just easy to ingest, easy to take in, still interesting and fun. Totally recommend this. Next 3-star is Your Lie in April by Naoshi Arakawa. This is basically a general contemporary manga. I believe it's probably going to be a romance, but the first volume I read, it's more of a contemporary following this boy who grew up with a mother who is pretty abusive to him in terms of like the making him play piano. So he's a very gifted piano prodigy, but how much of that was like talent versus sort of like just abusive, forcing him to practice the entire way. Then his mother dies and he can't really hear the piano anymore to play, and so he's dealing with that. He's dealing with a lot of complicated feelings around that grief, and dealing with music, and he has a best friend who is trying to help him with this, and he has a girl best friend that he's known since childhood. He has a guy best friend, and the girl best friend has a classmate who wants to meet the guy best friend because the guy best friend is like handsome and popular, and she's interested in meeting him. But our main character, he sees the new girl, and she is also a musician, so she's a violinist, and he kind of like everything like lightens and brightens with her. And so they kind of interact, and towards the end of the volume, she asks him to be his accompanying pianist for her violin competition. Now, all I've said is very interesting story-wise, but what threw me off, and I don't know that I can keep going with this, is that alongside this interesting story of this character and his complicated feelings with his grief for his mother and trying to deal with finding love for music and life again, is this weird humorous tone of these characters. Like, these kids are in middle school, and it's just every so often there'll be these beautiful art, beautiful moments, and then 2 pages later the main girl best friend is like fucking like whacking this dude in the face. It's like a running joke in the volume that he is knocked out by a baseball, by a soccer ball, by his friends. He's being like kicked at by his friends, like, and like in a joking, like in that joking way that you see in manga and anime, but having that juxtaposed with this very serious emotional story, it was jarring and I did not like it. So, which is very disappointing because I've heard so many great things about this, and that's why I tried it. It was on Kobo Plus. And for the record, I thought my Kobo, this is the Clara 2E. Oh, I still had Escape Velocity up. I thought the Clara 2E would be too small to really take manga in, but I thought, you know, it's on Kobo Plus, you know, essentially available for free, but it did pretty well, actually. I didn't really have to zoom in, except for 1 or 2 times I had to zoom in, but it worked really well for how small the screen is, so I was pleasantly surprised by that. But Your Lie in April, 3 stars. Unless someone can convince me that this calms down and evens out in the tone and stuff a little bit, I don't know that I'm really interested in continuing. So unfortunately, but yeah, that's how it goes. Last 3-star of the month is Snowglobe by Kim Soyoung. This is a dystopian novel translated from Korean. Apparently it was like a smash hit Korean bestseller, and it's finally translated this year. And this is essentially post-climate apocalypse kind of situation. It's compared to Snowpiercer because it is like a snowed over Earth. And what else is it compared to? It's compared to Hunger Games and Squid Game. And sort of, yeah, not Hunger Games. I wouldn't say Hunger Games. Maybe Hunger Games in terms of how, okay. Climate apocalypse, the Earth is just below freezing temperatures. A lot of people live in small, like, as best as they can in this climate. They've adapted to it. And there is this one big city called Snowglobe. It's under a dome of glass, and that is climate controlled. And everyone who lives there, they live in luxury. They live in like decent temperatures. They have like lives, but the price to pay for living in Snowglobe is that your life is a reality show, essentially, for everybody who doesn't live in Snowglobe. So it's so that everybody who doesn't live in Snowglobe have something to look forward to and watch. And this is doing a lot of commentary on class, reality TV, how we treat each other in terms of like clawing our way to the top. And our main character, she lives on the outside and she loves Snowglobe television, and she has a dream of becoming essentially there are all the actors, the ones who are on TV, and there are directors. These are the people essentially who direct the reality, who direct the lives of the people who are on TV. And she dreams of becoming a director, and they hold auditions every year to find actors and directors to join Snowglobe. She gets the chance to join Snowglobe. I don't know how much, I can't ever remember how much is actually in the synopsis. Our main character, Chobam, she loves this show. I forgot what the name of the show is, but it's following this girl, Heri. Heri has been an actor since she was born. She comes from an acting dynasty. And Chobam has loved this because she has been told that she looks like Heri, and she has always like admired Heri and dreams to like go into Snowglobe and direct a show that is as popular and huge as Heri's show is. One day, the director of Heri's show comes to Chobam's village and finds her and lures her in with the promise of going to Snowglobe because Heri took her own life and nobody knows yet, and the director wants Chobam to step in as Heri so that the show can keep going and with no one the wiser. Now, Chobam accepts because what else is she going to do? It's Snowglobe. And everything is a lot more sinister and, less than she imagined. Very dystopian things. So, Hunger Games, yes, Snowglobe is the capital, essentially. Squid Game, yes, when talking about, capitalism and what people will do anything to keep what they have and to get what others have. Yeah, kind of. I think Squid Game is mostly just because it's the only really big, other than Parasite, it's the only really big thing. You know what? Parasite is a better comp to this. Parasite, if it was more like Bong Joon-ho's other movies like Okja or The Host, if it had more of that, like more lighter comedic feel, if you've seen the trailer for Mickey 17, which Bong Joon-ho is directing, that feel. It's more what Snowglobe is versus the seriousness of Parasite, but a lot of the theming in Parasite is here in Snowglobe. And then obviously Snowpiercer, which was the movie adaptation was directed by Bong Joon-ho, because the cars are separated by social class. It's snowed over climate, etc. All that said, this was a decent book. But it was exactly the same dystopian story you have read a million times over. It did have a couple of things that surprised me a little bit, but that was surprise in terms of like the plot and how the plot is pushing forward the exact same dystopian theming that you have seen over and over and over. So, and the interesting thing, I guess, here is seeing how these dystopian themes are being put through and filtered through a South Korean cultural lens. So the way they view their dramas and their variety shows is very evident here. And it's interesting, but if you want to read it, just go into it knowing, if you've read a few dystopian novels, you know how this is going, you know the plot beats that are going to happen. But it was interesting. It was pretty good. I still gave it 3 stars because, like I said, in the end, like I felt like I had read this before, even if it's, you know, from a different cultural context. I feel like I've read it before. So I still recommend it if you're interested in reading it. But yeah, that is how I felt. Alrighty, no 4 stars. We're going directly to 4.5. That is The Institute by Stephen King. I talked about this a little in my last wrap up because I was currently reading it. And Stephen King is just compulsively readable to me, and this is no exception. This is a story about a boy who has he's incredibly smart, like genius level smart, but he has very, very incredibly mild telekinetic powers, but he is kidnapped by the shadowy government organization, taken to this institute where they perform experiments on these kids, and yada, yada, yada. It's great. It has all the hallmarks of a great Stephen King, great character work, character and friendship work. It was compulsively readable. I liked it. I liked where it went, and it had a good ending. Stephen wrote a good ending. I liked it. But yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about this because the story is not really anything super new. I feel like people compare it to Stranger Things, which to me, Stranger Things is a riff on Firestarter, which is Stephen King, so it's just all cyclical. But if you know Stranger Things, I don't watch Stranger Things. I've watched like the first 2 episodes. So my only context for comparing this to Stranger Things is how Eleven was part of some shadowy secret experiment things. That's all the context I have. I really liked this. Liked the characters. Loved the writing. So glad that I could be completely immersed and not stop reading a Stephen King. I always have a good time with King. So even though I had all of that good time, there's still hallmarks of Stephen King here that were just like, didn't have to do that. But, you know, there goes. 4.5 stars. Fantastic. Okay, moving on to the 5 stars. 3 of them I've already talked about. First was Mystic River by Dennis Lehane. This was a reread. I guess in the past on Goodreads, I put it at 4 stars, but it's definitely a 5-star. This reread cemented it as being one of my favorite books of all time. So link down below if you want to read that or watch that. Next 5-star was Yona of the Dawn, volume 42 by Mizuho Kusanagi. I always say this, but I don't know what to talk about with this because it's volume 42 of a long-running series. So I do talk about it as much as I can in the past in the video link down below. And then also Frieren, Beyond Journey's End by Kanehito Yamada. Very good, a little bit different than I was expecting, but in a great way. So I also talked about this in a past video, link is down below. Okay, we're here. My last 5-star, my last read of October, my last 5-star of October, my latest addition to my all-time favorites of the year, but also top 10, at minimum, top 10 favorite book of the year. This is Sistah Samurai by Tatiana Obi. This is, yes, as you can tell, it says a Champloo novella. Now, this is inspired by Samurai Champloo and Afro Samurai. Now, I am a black nerd, but I was never a super anime black nerd. Like most of the anime I ever watched was just like Dragon Ball Z after school afternoons on the Cartoon Network, Pokemon obviously, Sailor Moon, and that was about it. I never really dug into it, so I don't really know Samurai Champloo or Afro Samurai that much. But even though I didn't have that knowledge, I didn't need it to go into this. I got exactly what she was putting down as soon as it started. So this takes place inspired by Samurai Champloo. And this takes place in a world where everybody's black. It's fantastic. So our main character we don't learn her name until here. I think, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to keep her Sistah Samurai. I'm going to just call her Sistah Samurai. Sistah Samurai is the last of an order of samurai. They were all black women, and in this story, in this land, there are these demons essentially that have risen up and are essentially a blight on the land. The samurai were trying to protect them, but something happened and all of them were massacred. Our main character was not there that day for reasons that we learn later in the novella. And she is carrying that immense guilt of being a survivor, of losing her sister, her family. She just, as we open up, she lives in the forest and she goes down into this town every day. The magic system is really cool. She has to get this specialized ink that allows her to write out spells, and then she uses those spells in her fighting. So she goes down every day to get ink, but she has her routine. She gets the ink, she walks the town, she goes to her ramen place, she goes home. She has a routine, and she is tired on this day when fools just keep interrupting her routine. Now, everything kind of builds on from the first moment that things are interrupted and as it keeps going to the end. And it's just this really beautiful meditation on grief. And here's the thing about this, is that I, in the last few months, have gotten a little sick of books that are about grief. So I've been kind of avoiding them, but I didn't know that this one was. But it balanced it in a way that I appreciated what was happening here. And I think what worked for me is that later on in the book, and I think I'm gonna have to do a spoiler section because I really want to talk about this, but I don't want to have it be known before you go into it, because I think it was so powerful that I'm gonna do a spoiler section. But let's talk about the rest of this non-spoilery still. And so we follow her along this day. We learn more about the world as she's going about her day, and as people keep coming in and messing up her routine. One of my favorite things was there's the Sistah Samurais and there's the brother monks, and I think they're like the Brotherhood of the Do-Rag. It was fantastic. This monk has a do-rag, apparently goes like all the way down to the ground almost. It was great. It just, those little touches. And I think like the main city that used to be called Edolanta, which this is so unapologetic in what it's doing. And like Obi says from the start, like, this is anachronistic and you're just gonna fucking deal with it, you know? You're just gonna deal with it. It doesn't matter like what she's talking about. It doesn't matter if it's anachronistic. If you go into it accepting that, it's a great ride. It's a great story. It's a great story about this strong, tough woman who has a lot going on and is dealing with a lot. And it's just this day in her life and how things go sideways. And just the way the story builds up her character and her backstory and the world that this is in and everything that happened and the reveal after reveal. It was so satisfying by the end. And intense and emotional, and it wrecked me. And that's why I want to do a spoiler section, because I gotta talk about it and gush about it. But yes, so before I get to the spoilers, if you're interested in this, it's fun, it's great, it has a lot more emotional depth than it looks like from this cover. Because, like, you know, this cover, it looks like just like, you know, kind of just silly, ridiculous fun. It has that, but it's tempered by a lot of really emotional heft, which I was really pleasantly surprised by. So before we get to spoilers, if you're interested in reading it, read it first, please. Don't listen to these spoilers, because I think so much of this is just picking up a lot of what I'm going to talk about as you read this book. So if you're interested, skip the spoiler section. Okay, I'm gonna make it really obvious the spoilers. It's not my fault if you listen to the spoiler section and you get upset and it ruins the thing for you. It's not my fault. I'm warning you. Okay, so Monique is her name. She's the last of these samurai, and a lot of it was like the cherry blossoms were their thing, which is why they have this cover. And just for the record, the cherry blossom is my absolute favorite flower, which is, you know, great. And when we find out what the samurai sisterhood was, I was just stunned. I read the first few names and I was just like, I hit Breonna Taylor and I was like, oh fuck. and the way it just keeps going. It's like, it's a full 2 pages of names. And I was just like, these are all her sister. These are the names of all her sisters who died in the novel, but they're also real Black women who have died. And I was just like, it was like just an absolute emotional, just absolute gut punch. And how many there are here. There's a lot. I just, it's a lot. And that was just essentially the cherry on top of what this is doing theming wise. And another part of that also is not just that, but also Monique is dealing with who she is as a person, not just as not a former samurai, she's still a samurai, not just as a samurai, but as a person. And after she went to the town after all her sisters died and she tried to perform their final rites, even though she's pretty sure like she couldn't save their souls because these demons sort of like eat up human souls and they're trapped in these demons, and she wasn't there in time to help to free them. She somehow gets a demon attached to her shadow. So it's not like the demon is it's kind of inhabiting her, and she fights with it. And essentially this demon acts as her own, I guess, mental self-saboteur. This demon is all those thoughts we have about ourselves that we would never say aloud to someone else, that we would never tell someone else. And there's a section that also I got to it and it just kept going and going, and I was like, oh my fucking God. It's just the demon voice in her head just keeps telling her every horrible thought that she's had about herself. You're a terrible samurai. You're too selfish. You're too flawed. You're too imperfect. You're too scared. You're too unreliable. You're too angry. You're too snarky. You're too loud. You're too quiet. You're too distant. You're too old. You're too young. You're too fast. You're too slow. You're too impulsive. You're too emotional. Too aggressive. You're too ghetto. You're too hood. You're too ratchet. You're too bougie. You're too preppy. You're too urban. You're too country. You're too smart. You're too violent. You're too passive. You're too crazy. You're too clever. You're too ignorant. You're too nerdy. You're too dumb. You're too blunt. You're too poor. You're too rich. You're too right. You speak too wrong. You speak too right. You laugh too much. You dance too much. You talk too much. You read too much. You run too much. You win too much. You lose too much. You complain too much. You worry too much. You eat too much. You hustle too much. You sleep too much. You struggle too much. You fight too much. I got to here. Okay. That's what I read just now. I got to about here. There's all of this. And I just, I was just like, I still don't know what to say about it because it just hit like right here. It's like everything, every thought that you have about yourself, every contradictory feeling you have about yourself, everything you would never say to someone you love but you say to yourself. I was just like, holy fuck, what are we doing here? And why have I gone from there was an awesome fight to what just happened? And that is the beauty of this. This is just, oh my God, it's so good. And it was just, I don't know what to say. It makes me emotional how much it's hit me. And it also makes me think a lot about, and a lot of books like this that center Blackness like this make me think a lot about my own relationship with my Blackness. Now, I am mixed race. My mom is Black, my dad's Black and Japanese, white and Japanese. And I have a very complicated relationship with Blackness because I didn't grow up with my Black family. When I was a baby to I have memories of being like a very, very, very young child with my mom, but then my dad, my grandpa and grandma, his parents would take me and my sister back and forth to West Africa. And then eventually when I was 6, we went to Kenya, and I spent ages 6 through 12 in Kenya. In Kenya, I was being raised, my dad traveled a lot. In Kenya, I was being raised by my white grandpa, my Japanese grandma. We had Kenyan house staff, and then I was going to a British expat school. So I didn't really grow up feeling like a Black American. And then I come back to the States, and I've always felt this weird relationship to my blackness, because when I was growing up, I wasn't black. I was just me. And if anything, I had more white and Japanese culture than I did any sort of black culture. And it took a lot of cultural osmosis and being back around my mom's side of the family a little bit more to be a bit more in touch with that side. But I still, like, it took me a while to reconcile the fact that the way I saw myself and the way society sees me aren't the same thing. And so I appreciate Black-centered stories like this, because I can't always reach it 100%, but when I do have parts of it that I can connect to, it feels great. And the rest of it is just, I get to experience it through this book. So this made me think a lot. It actually makes me really emotional. This is just, it was so good. Sistah Samurai, what a read, what a wild ride, what a fun time. Oh, let's go back to spoilers really quick. Bitch, was there a Blastoise in the river in this? There's a fucking Pokemon that shows up in this, right? Like, that wasn't just me, right? That was on purpose. I just like dying. I was dying. It was fantastic. Yes, Sistah Samurai, please, if you can find it, give it a try, especially if you are a Black fantasy reader. If you're a Black anime watcher, give it a try. It's just so much fun. It's so emotional. It hits a lot of really incredible thematic beats. And I just, I can't talk about this enough. I can't gush about it enough. 5 stars, favorite of the year. Yeah, read it. Just read it. That's all I can say. Just read it. Whew, that was an interesting month. I'm gonna keep this short because I gotta get out of here so that my husband can set up and do stuff. I can't even talk anymore. That's how it's going. Ooh, the sun's out. Thank you for watching as always. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about, that I read this month, that I talked about. Let me know what you think about them. Let me know if you're gonna check out Sistah Samurai, because I need to push this on everybody and anybody and everybody. Just read it. Read it, read it, read it, read it, read it. I can't talk enough. Ooh, if you want to leave an emoji, leave, I think there's a cherry blossom sakura. Do that. Anyways, thanks again, and I will catch you next time.